The following video will touch on technical aspects of how images are transferred over the internet and the reasons it doesn't always work. This will indeed include the subject of pareidolia in images, where you look at an image and you see things in it that weren't there in the original version. Now, it takes a lot to do that, but lately there's a cause. But I'm going to cover something really simple. Google screwed up. So here we go. Let's say you're a website owner and you want to make it to where you use the least amount of bandwidth or services or features or whatever, so that you don't get a bunch of high costs for running your website. Now imagine you're Google. Okay, so you're a website owner and you can use the server to tell the web browser at the other end that's watching your YouTube video, let's say you're just YouTube, and there's thumbnails to look at, and banners on YouTube channels, and maybe postings like we have in the comment section. I'm in the community section, that sort of thing, icons for channels or sorts of things, and they take bandwidth. Now, the thing that chews up the bandwidth, if anybody's not aware of it, is the immense amount of tracking code in JavaScript and all the other crap on a website that's not really what we're here for. And that's been confirmed repeatedly. But, perish the thought that a large corporation or even a simple operator of one website would ever admit that they could easily lower their costs of doing business by just not doing stupid, sneaky, scummy crap. Anyway, so they can go ahead and access a file on the server called htaccess. It's htaccess. And this can tell every web browser, hey, can you take WebP or some alternate really easily compressed image format? Now, there are two types of compression. One of them compresses things and it actually makes it faster for you and I to look at it. And the other kind makes it ridiculously slow. This is the slow kind. But it can be used to reduce the bandwidth. There's many other ways to do it that are better, but this is how it's done. This is how the sausage is made. So the images are fed to you as WebPs instead of the requested JPEG, PNG, GIF, or whatever. But only if the browser says it supports WebP. This is going to be the practical part of the video. On Firefox, when that happens, when you're trying to get the original, unaltered, unedited, raw image, or at least the original JPEG, or the original PNG, or the original whatever, it would really help if it didn't stop you from getting the original when it has it. Now, there are ways of tricking it, and this is not ridiculously new, but it is pretty much a recent thing. This is something that Google was involved in screwing around with from the year 2010 to 2018. It only got implemented very recently because Google pushed it more. Web browsers would support it, and that's fine, but that means that when you're looking at an image, it'll say it's a JPEG, and then you right-click to save as, and it wants to save it as a WebP, which is a file format that is, in many people's opinion, garbage. Under Firefox, you can tell Firefox to not accept WebP and say that it's not able to support it, and then the web browser will be able to ask from the website to get the JPEG, which is already compressed to hell, PNG, which can be compressed to hell if the website wants to, and GIF, which is an abomination on compression, unless you futz with it or hack it. Now, that can be done with a program from JSCHER 2000, and it's a program for Firefox called dont-accept-webp, and I'm trying to use it. Now, other things you can try is to go into about config. That means where you'd have the address bar where you type in google.com or whatever. You put in about:config and hit enter. And you would look up in the little search box, after you go through the yes, I'll be careful thing, image.http.accept, and it'll have in there a special setting for WebP. Now, this does or does not work on your browser depending on the version. And you can get rid of the WebP reference by deleting it and just leaving */* or */*. That's the same as **** for most of you DOS people. What that means is it accepts any image format, but it doesn't specifically mention WebP in the first one because that would make it priority. The next one is about config setting image.webp.enabled. You can set that to false. Now this means that a lot of websites will break, won't render anything. Or you can use dont-accept-webp by Jisher 2000 as a Firefox plugin or add-on, and it will tell it to, when in doubt, tell the website server, I don't have the ability to process WebP. Don't send it to me unless you have to, and it'll send you the raw JPEG, PNG, or GIF. Now, what if it doesn't? Well, does it recompress it or something? And then you're going to hear people say that it does or doesn't. Yes, of course it does. If it makes it take up less space, it could losslessly compress it, but that's not what's going on most of the time. Now, remember, JPEGs are already compressed with losses. PNG can be lossless or lossy, and GIF is, by definition, too limited to not be compressing something and losing it. There's also about config network.http.accept.default, and you can change all sorts of settings in there. And there's a bunch of things you can mess with. But the point is, in order for me to get a raw copy of a page picture, that's if I'm going to get it or if I'm going to archive it, in order to trick the server into not lying to me and sending me an altered image, I have to do these modifications to the computer. Or I have to get tricky with it by saying, if the browser does it, right-click Save As, and then change it from whatever file format it wants it to be, which is going to be WebP. I say, save it as all files, and I have to guess or know what file format it is. Most of them are JPEGs. The others are going to be PNGs these days. There could be all sorts of others. But the point is, I just had a recent experience where I was trying to save something to do a video. And even the other plugin I had for saving it by converting it didn't work. Remember, if it runs through any conversion process, it's not the original image. Now we're going to get on to the point of the day. I made a video where I explained to people, whether they like hearing it or not, that when you get any information off the internet that's in the form of a picture, sound file, whatever, a website is not required to make sure that you get the raw version of it. Every image you take with a camera goes through some sort of compression. When you upload it to a website, they can just get away with altering it. If you put it on Facebook or MySpace or whatever, it's going to get altered by the website. And it's not some sneaky evil thing they're doing. It's that they're trying to save bandwidth. And usually they do that just for the thumbnail version. If you click the thumbnail, it'll bring up the full version. Or if you do go through the trouble of right-clicking Save As or Download As, it should tell the browser to say, hey, send me the raw version, not the WebP or converted or compressed version. Many websites just don't do that, but some do. Now, then we get to the next point. When someone sees on the internet an image that seems to have oddly specific things going on it that make it look like you're seeing faces or limbs or seeing circles or whatever, the algorithm used even for making a JPEG compress can cause these. Same thing with PNG or any other image format. And websites sometimes try to improve the image by making them seemingly infinitely scalable and zoomable, which is not real. Zooming in does not enhance anything. It doesn't get more data. It just makes the dots bigger. But then you see some of them with your web browser that keeps seeming to produce more detail. That's your web browser lying to you. So let's review. Pareidolia is when your mind, your visual cortex in the human mind, sees things that aren't there because it's trying to make sense of something that has a lack of data, too much data, noise, whatever. We see patterns where there aren't any. Because it's a survival function. We have to go on very little information when we look around a corner. We piece something together and hope that that's correct. The algorithm or AI utilities in even your browser trying to view an image and trying to make it look nicer for you, I'd love to be able to turn that off on every web page I go to. I'd rather deal with bad-looking images that are authentic. Same thing with the WebP conversion or a website doing it. And again, when I look up how to solve this problem, I get people making excuses. I call them fanboys who complain, it's not the browser, it's the web server. No, it's not. The web browser is telling the web server it's allowed to send it these altered images. We should be able to turn that off. It doesn't improve at the end of the day the bandwidth. A website can just substitute and say, oh, you wanted to download that PNG file or that TIF file? Well, we're going to send you a JPEG because it's compressed, and unless you explicitly, open that picture up and view properties and then hit download, and then it tells us you really want the raw version, there's no reason to feed us the raw version, the high-res version, or the cleaned up, the perfectly good version of it. It'll send us the one that looks nice, makes it look useful, and we can, use it as a thumbnail or background or whatever. We can do what we want to. But to get the raw image, that takes more bandwidth. And please understand, let's say you have an image that has 24-bit quality. That means it uses a single 8-bit byte for red, one for green, and one for blue for every pixel on the screen. So let's say we're going to do, I guess, a 1080 image. That's almost 1 million dots on the screen. That's almost 3 million dots for every picture if it's a full res version. And most of you have seen ones that are much bigger. And they don't take up that much space normally. And they can be compressed and be lossless, and you won't lose any bits, but most of them are going to be lossy. And the idea is just to make it look good enough that you won't notice the losses. But one of the tricks is, even if it does that, the thing viewing the image can alter the image and try to fill in the gaps. And a lot of image viewers, including the ones in your, especially cell phones, but the ones even in a desktop browser like Firefox, or this one here that I'm using that's a slightly modified version, will try to make the images look nicer. And they make a good guess. They can do it based on the whole of the image, how it looks in general, and get it working good. That's why I pointed out in one of my videos that it looked like the camera that took a picture of a nature environment added weird shapes to the ground because it thought that it was grass when literally the area probably didn't have any grass there. It added it in because it didn't know what to do with the noise to make it look nice. And again, it could be my browser doing it. It could be the website it came from. It could be the camera it came from. It could be the software they used to just, try to change the contrast so you could see better. And because that happens, it needs to be understood that will happen. And again, this will cause pareidolia. You will really see things in an image that aren't there because the algorithm for saving the image from the camera all the way to your browser could be altering it to do that. And it will save that file in that altered state. And this is something that can be tested and confirmed. And again, I'm using a browser that was doing this as well. It's one of the reasons I had to look up how to turn this off. And I thought I had it turned off, and then a couple of days ago, my computer decided it wasn't going to save the files with the original format. So I had to remove all the plugins, start over, and I'm not even sure it's doing it now. I don't even know. And yeah, that was caused by Google writing an algorithm that people criticize because it's slower, it loses more data, and it tends to break the images. So when you're on the internet and you see, something weird looking in the background in an image, try assuming that maybe it's caused by maybe your head, because your brain is supposed to make images where there aren't any because, better safe than sorry mode. And also, very importantly, it could just be your web browser all the way to the camera it came out of, trying to auto-awesome it and make it look nice. I want to point out that was a feature that was forced down to people's throats on many websites. It was a fad to make pictures look better. An instant Instagram filter, if you will, to try to clean them up. And now it's part of our browsers, and just looking up images on Google or looking at the thumbnails on YouTube. Again, it's mostly to compress images down to take up less space, be transferred faster, take up less space on the systems, and then it just kind of interpolates it back up and tries to fix it. Now, the thing about this that is stupid, especially with the WebP, is they could just store a PNG high-res version and then store a low-res JPEG version and then just feed you the JPEG until, the 1 in 500 people that want the high-res version right-click and save as. They'll get the high-res version. They don't have to do any of this. And it's part of the substitution function they already have, and they have for decades. There's no reason to do this. And it's aggravating when you're doing research and you get an image and you can see the AI routine trying to draw puppy dog heads in the sky again. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Don't take any wooden realities.